Back in '87, this regular guy, Jordan Belfort, lands an entry-level job as a Wall Street stockbroker for L.F. Rothschild. Belfort has humble origins and wants to be rich. His easygoing but foul-mouthed boss, Mark Hanna, has lunch with Belfort, and Mark asks Belfort how many times he jerks off. Belfort says about 3 or 4 times a week, and Mark tells him to increase the numbers to cope better with the stress of being a stockbroker. Mark babbles on about the dynamics of the stock market and calls it a fugazi. He then encourages Jordan to join him in the money chant. Belfort's first day at work goes sour as the stock market experiences Black Monday's history's largest one-day drop in stocks. Belfort was then laid off, and then he started thinking of ways to get back on track. Teresa, his wife, suggests that they pawn her engagement ring while he looked for jobs in the paper. Belfort comes across Investor Center, a brokerage firm located in a small shopping center. The firm deals with worthless penny stocks. Then, Belfort shows up in a suit, but isn't impressed with how they carry on their business. Dwayne, the guy who runs the place, welcomes Belfort with open arms. Belfort is then assigned to pitch a sale for a company called Aerotine. He exceeds expectations and impresses everyone in the office as he locks in a $40,000 trade. "How did you effing do that?" one of his coworkers says, as Belfort smiles and shakes his coworkers' hands. One day, Belfort meets his neighbor Donnie Azonoff, and they have a little chit-chat. Azonoff quits his job after learning that Jordan makes over $70,000 a month. The pair become friends and plan to found their own company. Belfort and Donnie have drinks at a bar, and Donnie later reveals to Belfort that he's married his cousin simply because he didn't fancy the idea of another person trying to sleep with her. Outside, Donnie offers some crack to Jordan, who takes one hit and tells Donnie that they need to run. The pair find a garage and set up their business plan. They bring in some friends and train them on hard selling as they create a sort of pump and dump scheme together. After a few months, Belfort and Donnie inflate stock prices through exaggerated and misleading statements about the stocks. They create a pseudo-inflation which causes price hikes. Then, they sell off their overinflated securities at the peak of the hype. An immediate fall in prices then follows and leaves everybody who invested with them in losses. Jordan names his firm Stratton Oakmont in 1989. Lots of people, particularly in the middle and working class investors, end up getting carried away by what they think is a respectable name. Jordan and his friends amass a fortune over that time and become super wealthy. After each person ends up making a sale, the whole floor celebrates. They bring in hookers and marching bands, and at one time, a female employee gets her head shaved as Jordan pays her $10,000 for her to get breast implants. Within 2 years of leaving L.F. Rothschild, Belfort makes such an impression that Forbes does an expose on him. Forbes calls him, quote, a sleazy Robin Hood, and labels him the Wolf of Wall Street to his disgust. Teresa convinces Belfort that they could use such publicity to their advantage. A multitude of financiers with high and lofty ambitions flock to Belfort's company in a gold rush. Jordan's decadent lifestyle begins to take roots firmly in his life. He takes a different prostitute home every night, and he cannot stay clean from drugs. Belfort buys luxury cars and owns expensive stuff. He even has an affair with Naomi LaPaglia, an attractive blonde who meets at a party in his lifelong beachfront house. Teresa finds out about the affair to her discernment as Belfort divorces her and sets out to marry Naomi. Teresa is heartbroken, and she never approved of Jordan's shenanigans and infidelity. Naomi then moves into Jordan's apartment, and there he ends up hiring a decorator to retouch the apartment to their liking. Belfort buys her a yacht as a wedding gift and names it Naomi. 18 months later, the pair welcome their first child, Skylar. Meanwhile, the FBI and SEC has Jordan on their radar, and in 1993, when Jordan ends up making $22 million in less than 3 hours after securing Steve Madden's IPO, they decide to close in on him. Jordan attempts to end up diverging his money through a Swiss bank account and employs Jean-Jacques Charel, a banker who knows how to cut corners. Jordan uses his new wife's aunt's name, Emma, for the Swiss account. Aunt Emma, a British national, doesn't get troubled by the American authorities. Smart move. Over time, Jordan uses his in-laws to find his way around the European passports and smuggles cash into Switzerland. One day, Jordan's partner Donnie gets into a brawl with Brad, another of Jordan's henchmen. The former then escapes while the latter isn't so lucky. Brad then gets arrested, and however, he doesn't say a word about Jordan or even Donnie to the cops. One day, Donnie shows up at Belfort's house with a strong variety of quadules called Lemon 714. It's a rare version of the drug, and both end up taking a pill and watch Family Matters on the television. They don't really feel any effects until after 35 minutes, so they just take more. Jordan and Donnie later find out that the drug expired in 1981. Naomi, who is pregnant again, goes downstairs to find both of them passed out. Naomi tells Jordan that Bo Ditley, his private investor, is on the line. The latter tells Jordan to leave his house and call him with a payphone. Jordan drives a mile downtown to a country club to use the payphone, where then Ditley tells him that Brad is arrested and that Jordan has his home and work phones tapped. Jordan begins to feel the effects of the lemons, and because they were expired, they had a delayed onset of action. Jordan's speech begins to get slurred, and he loses his coordination as well as his balance. He crawls outside and manages to use his foot to open his Lamborghini's door. Naomi calls to tell Jordan that Donnie's acting strange back home. Jordan attempts to drive his car home despite being high. He gets home and crawls into the kitchen to put Donnie, who is also experiencing similar symptoms. He tries his best to pull Donnie off the phone, screaming that the FBI is listening. Donnie then puts some stuff in his mouth and starts to choke. Naomi and Jordan manage to resuscitate Donnie, who coughs up food that he was choking on. The next morning, Jordan finds the police at his house. Mr. Belfort Sr. advises his son to lay low for a while and cut a deal with the cops through his lawyer. Jordan refuses to quit. Quote, "I ain't going anywhere," he says as he convinces himself while giving a speech. A flashback reveals that Jordan damaged his car, hit several cars, a mailbox, and golf carts as he drove back home. In 1996, Jordan, Donnie, and their wives embark on a yacht trip to Italy. And on their way, they learn that Aunt Emma has passed on. It's devastating for Jordan, and he decides to travel to Switzerland immediately to settle his account. Jordan attempts to boycott the customs at the border by sailing to Monaco first, but as Lady Luck would have it, the ship capsizes amidst the storm. Jordan and his team then get rescued by air, but the plane that's supposed to take them to Geneva gets destroyed after a seagull enters the engine. At this point, Jordan begins to read the handwriting on the wall, and he feels within him that it was time to become sober. Maybe it's a sign from God that he needs to retrace his steps. Jordan ended up getting arrested in 1998 after Sorrell ratted him out to the FBI, which at this point, there's overwhelming evidence against Jordan. He decided to pull out one more trick from the book. He thinks to himself that if he could gather some evidence and rat his colleagues out, the FBI might be lenient on him. Jordan tries everything that he can to either evade the FBI or try to get them on his side. Meanwhile, Jordan's problems are not just financial or legal, but rather he's become loathsome. Back home, after he rapes his wife Naomi, she calls him a sick man and sets out to divorce him, as well as taking custody of the kids. Jordan's world is crashing in on him, and he can't bear this and tries to drive off with his daughter after hitting Naomi. Amid the cocaine-fueled rage, he crashes his car in the driveway and has to be taken to the hospital. After recovering, Jordan sets out for work and tries to prevent Donnie from incriminating himself. Jordan breaks his deal with the FBI. However, they find out, arrest Jordan, and shut down his firm. Despite not fulfilling his end of the deal, Jordan receives only 36 months of a minimum security prison. He then serves 22 months and is finally released, although he never really got punishment for his sins, and he lives ruined, but the dream has long since ended. Following his release, Jordan becomes a motivational speaker and makes a living by hosting seminars where he teaches people different sales techniques. Quote, "Sell me this pen," he says to his audience, and he dishes out business lessons. Martin Scorsese's 3-hour epic movie ends on that note. The movie's based on a true life story and is electrifying, intense, funny, and emotional. Make sure to subscribe and turn on your post notifications to enjoy more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and until next time, we'll see you later.